I never thought I'd end up kissing my ex-girlfriend's brother in the dark. But that's exactly what happened, and honestly, I'm still not over it. Let me back up. This wasn't some messy hookup thing. It wasn't planned. It wasn't revenge. It was something else. Something way more confusing. His name's Ben. We weren't exactly friends. I mean, we knew each other because of Leah, my ex. Ben was her older brother, the quiet one who always looked like he was thinking about something more interesting than whatever was in front of him. I used to be kind of intimidated by him, to be honest. Not because he was a jerk or anything, but because he saw right through people. You could feel it, and I hated that I never knew what he thought of me when I was dating his sister. But things change. Leah and I broke up 6 months ago. It was mutual. Sort of. She got accepted to a grad program in London, and we both knew long distance wasn't going to work. We ended things with a hug and a sad laugh. No drama, no screaming, just quiet acceptance. Ben and I ran into each other a few times after that. At a mutual friend's birthday, a game night someone roped me into, that kind of thing. Each time I was surprised at how easy it was to talk to him. He was funnier than I remembered. Smarter, too. Or maybe I just never paid attention before. The night everything changed started off pretty normal. I was at a small house party at our friend Mark's place. Nothing crazy. Just drinks, music, and too many people in too small a living room. I hadn't expected Ben to be there, but when I walked in, there he was, sitting on the arm of a chair, drink in hand, wearing a navy hoodie that looked way too soft not to touch. "Hey," he said, like we were just two guys who saw each other all the time. I nodded. Hey, that should have been the end of it. A quick hello, maybe some awkward small talk before we drifted apart again. But for some reason, we stuck together. We ended up on the kitchen floor with 2 other people, playing a card game that devolved into a messy debate about superhero logic. Ben was surprisingly passionate about Spider-Man's moral code, and I couldn't stop watching the way his mouth curled when he made a point. At some point, someone killed the lights for a drinking challenge. And before anyone could flip them back on, boom, whole block went dark. People shouted. Someone joked about zombies. A couple people turned on their phone flashlights, but the mood shifted. The music died. The fridge stopped humming. The house felt still. "Power's out," someone confirmed, holding their phone up to the window. "Looks like the whole street," Mark groaned. "Seriously? Guess the party's over." People started trickling out, grabbing their jackets and phones. The energy deflated. A few stayed behind, half drunk and squinting at their phones for Uber updates. I was about to leave too, but then I realized Ben was still sitting beside me on the floor, now barely visible in the dim light from outside. "You heading out?" I asked. He shrugged. "Not yet. It's kind of nice like this, honestly." I blinked. "You like sitting in the dark?" "It's quiet," he said, voice low, "and people stop pretending." I didn't know what to say to that. So I sat down again, not sure why. The next 10 minutes were just silence, broken by distant sirens and the occasional laugh from someone still lingering in the hallway. Ben and I stayed there, backs against the cabinets, sharing a warm beer that tasted like flat gingerbread. I could barely see his face, just the vague outline of him. His voice was softer in the dark. "You and Leah," he said, not a question. I nodded. "Yeah, that's long over." "I know." He paused. "She told me." I waited, not sure where he was going with this. "She said you were a good guy. Just not her guy." I laughed, a little bitter. "That's probably accurate." Silence again. Then, out of nowhere, Ben said, "I always liked you more than I should have." That hit me like a punch to the chest. "What?" He shifted beside me. "I heard fabric brush against tile. I mean, when you were dating her. I noticed stuff. About you. Stuff I tried to ignore. The air felt heavier." I turned toward him, even though I could barely see him. "Ben, I know it's weird," he said quickly. "I'm not trying to mess with your head, if I don't say this now, I probably never will." I didn't move. I didn't speak. Then I felt his hand graze mine. Just barely. But it was enough to make my skin burn. The dark made everything louder. My heartbeat, my breathing, the way his fingertips hovered near mine. And then, just like that, he leaned in. No warning. No build-up. Our lips met in the dark, and I swear, I forgot how to breathe. The kiss didn't feel like a movie scene. There was no dramatic swell of music, no perfect camera angle, just heat, silence, and a rush of confusion that made my stomach twist in ways I wasn't ready for. It lasted maybe 4 seconds. 5, tops. Soft, tentative, barely there. But when he pulled back, the space between us felt completely different, like something had torn open. My hand was still frozen, where it had been resting on the floor, but now his pinky was brushing mine, and the smallest contact was enough to make my entire body tense. "Sorry," Ben said quickly, voice tight. That was probably not okay. I didn't say anything, not because I was angry. I just didn't know how to respond. My mind was still catching up to what had just happened. This was Leah's brother. The guy who once glared at me across the dinner table because I left a cabinet open. The guy I'd always thought was unreadable, untouchable. And now he'd kissed me. In the dark. And I hadn't pulled away. That part hit me hardest. He was already starting to get up, the scrape of denim on tile breaking the silence. "I'm gonna go. That was stupid. Just pretend it didn't happen. Wait." My voice came out lower than I intended, more urgent. He paused. I wasn't sure why I said it, why I stopped him. I should have let him go. I should have done the safe, predictable thing and stood up and walked out like it never happened. But I didn't. Because deep down, a part of me didn't want it to not happen. A part of me had felt something real in that kiss, no matter how brief or confusing it was. Ben sat back down slowly, but I could tell he was bracing for rejection. His body was stiff, his shoulders pulled in like he was trying to make himself smaller. "You don't have to say anything," he muttered. "Seriously, I shouldn't have." "I didn't hate it," I said. He turned toward me, just a faint silhouette in the dark. I couldn't see his eyes, but I could feel them on me. "You didn't hate it," he repeated, as if testing the words. "No," I said, quieter now. "I didn't hate it." Silence again. That weird, stretched kind that only happens in moments where something just changed, and neither person knows what to do next. I exhaled, trying to calm the pulse thudding in my throat. "Have you done that before?" I asked. "Kissed a guy?" he said, voice dry. "No." "Oh, have you?" I hesitated. "Yeah," he nodded slowly, like he'd been expecting that. "I always thought I was straight," he said. "Still don't really know what the hell I am. But something about you, since Leah, I don't know." The honesty in his voice made my chest tighten. "It's okay?" I said. He let out a breath that sounded like he'd been holding it in for months. "I was going to tell you before. I just couldn't figure out how. And then the lights went out and, I guess, I panicked." I laughed, a short, nervous burst. "Hell of a way to come out." "Is that what this is?" he asked. "Coming out?" I shrugged, then realized he probably couldn't see that. "I don't know. Maybe it's just figuring stuff out. You don't have to label anything right now." There was a pause. Then he said, "Thanks." We sat there for a while, side by side, legs stretched out across the cool tile floor. I could feel the warmth of him next to me, the unspoken tension between us still humming beneath the surface, but less jagged now. Softer. Outside, I heard the low rumble of thunder in the distance. It hadn't started raining yet, but the air felt thick, like a storm was crawling its way through the city, slow and heavy. Ben leaned his head back against the cabinet. "This feels insane." "I know. And not just the power outage, us, this." I didn't respond, because yeah, it did feel insane. Like stepping into a version of reality I hadn't prepared for. I hadn't come to that party expecting anything more than awkward conversations and maybe a few drinks. I definitely hadn't expected to kiss Ben, or to realize, in the seconds after, that I kind of wanted to do it again. "Are you freaked out?" he asked, not looking at me. "Not really," I said. Liar. I smiled despite myself. "A little, maybe." He turned toward me, and though I couldn't see his expression clearly, I knew he was smiling too. "Okay." "Good. Just checking I'm not the only one losing his mind." "You're not." Thunder rumbled again, closer now. The wind picked up outside, rattling the windows. The last few people at the party had trickled out, and from the silence that followed, I figured we were some of the only ones left. I shifted closer to him, shoulder brushing his. So what happens now? Ben was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I don't know, but I don't want that to be the last time. I turned to him, heart pounding again. Me neither. And this time, when he leaned in, I met him halfway. The second kiss was different. The first one had been impulsive, hesitant, like a secret neither of us expected to let slip. But this one, it felt intentional. It felt like a choice. His lips were softer than I remembered. Warmer, too. Or maybe that was just my blood rushing faster than it should have. The space between us disappeared, and for a moment, the blackout didn't feel like an inconvenience. It felt like a gift. Like maybe we needed the world to disappear just a little so this could finally happen. His hand found my arm, not possessive, not demanding, just steady, grounding. He kissed me like he was scared he'd mess it up, like he was still convincing himself it was real, and maybe I was doing the same. When we finally pulled apart, neither of us said anything right away. The silence was full, not awkward. It was the kind that held things. Like both of us needed a second to make sure we hadn't imagined it. Okay, Ben breathed, almost laughing. So that happened again. I exhaled. Yeah. He leaned his head against the cabinet behind him, staring up into the blackness like it might give him answers. I have no idea what I'm doing. That's allowed, I said. He turned his head to face me. I could barely see his expression, but I could hear the smile in his voice. I thought you'd be mad. Mad? I don't know. For making it weird. For crossing some line. You didn't, I said. And it was already weird. I've been trying to pretend I didn't notice the way you look at me sometimes. He laughed under his breath. You notice that? Yeah. I just didn't know if I was imagining it. You weren't. His voice dropped a little at that. There was something vulnerable in it. Like it hurt to admit, like it scared him. I didn't know what to do with that. So I leaned in again, just enough for our shoulders to press together. The room was warm. Too warm. The power had been out long enough for the air to start getting sticky. My shirt clung to my back. I heard the soft creak of the fridge as it settled into the silence, lifeless. The only light came from the street, barely seeping through the windows, painting faint outlines across the walls. Ben shifted beside me. You know, I've thought about this. You. Before. My heart stuttered. Really? He nodded slowly. Not like obsessively, but yeah. After you and Leah broke up, I'd catch myself wondering what it would have been like if we'd met under different circumstances. I laughed softly. Yeah, that would have been less complicated. I mean, it's still complicated. True. He tilted his head back, closing his eyes. Do you think she'd be pissed? I paused. I don't think so. She's not like that. She's not, he agreed. But still, there's something kind of messed up about this. Messed up, maybe, but not wrong. He looked over at me. You sure? No, I admitted. But it doesn't feel wrong. And honestly, it's the most honest I've felt in a while. That landed hard. I saw it on his face, even in the low light. A flicker of relief, a weight dropping off his shoulders. We stayed like that for a while, just sitting there in the dark, letting the quiet settle around us. Occasionally our knees would bump, or our arms would brush. Each little touch felt deliberate, electric, like we were figuring out this new language together, one neither of us had learned before. Eventually, Ben stood. Want to go outside? It's cooler out there. Yeah, I said, and followed him. The porch was barely lit by the glow of distant traffic and flashes of heat lightning flickering over the horizon. The storm hadn't hit us yet, but it was on its way. Ben leaned against the railing, and I stood beside him, the night air cutting through the warmth that clung to us inside. He glanced over at me, his face soft in the pale light. You're taking this better than I expected. Why's that? I don't know, he said. I thought maybe you'd just see me as your ex's brother, that this would be too weird. That I'd say something and you'd shut down. I shook my head. You're not just her brother. You're you. He blinked. That's a better answer than I deserve. I nudged him with my elbow. Don't make it dramatic. We kissed. We didn't just sign a mortgage. He laughed. True. A few beats of silence passed. Then he added, I'm not trying to screw you up, by the way. I know, and I'm not playing around. I wouldn't do that to you. I believe you. He looked at me again, more seriously this time. Even if I don't know what this is yet. That part hit harder than I expected. Because I didn't know either, but it was something. And maybe that was enough for now. You don't have to have it figured out tonight, I said. We're just two guys standing on a porch in the dark, in the middle of a blackout. That's it. Yeah, he said softly, and maybe it's not a terrible place to start. The storm hit around 3 a.m. I was half awake on Mark's couch, listening to the wind claw at the windows and the low roll of thunder that kept sliding through the city like it was searching for something. I hadn't gone home. Neither had Ben. After the porch, the two of us had just sort of drifted back inside, quiet and uncertain about what to do next. There were still a couple people passed out in different corners of the apartment, and we didn't talk about what happened. Didn't kiss again. But we didn't drift apart either. We stayed near each other. Ben had crashed on the floor in the living room, using a folded hoodie as a pillow, his arm over his face like he was trying to hide from the whole situation. I was curled up on the couch just a few feet away, pretending to sleep but mostly just staring into the dark, wondering how the hell one kiss could make me rethink everything. When I woke up, there was light. The kind of pale, gray morning light that only happens after a night of heavy rain. It was seeping through the curtains, making the room look softer somehow. My back hurt like hell from the couch springs, and someone had apparently left an empty pizza box balanced on the armrest next to me. The power was still out, judging by the blank microwave clock in the kitchen. Ben wasn't on the floor anymore. I sat up, heart skipping a beat, scanning the room. He was in the kitchen, barefoot, shirt rumpled, hair sticking up in a way that looked unintentional but somehow still good. He glanced over and saw me, then grabbed 2 mugs from the counter. No coffee, he said, holding one up. But I made you something better. He walked over and handed me a glass of warm-ish orange juice. I blinked at it. You woke up and immediately made me juice? It was either that or flat beer. I figured you'd appreciate the effort. I smiled and took it from him. Chivalry isn't dead after all. Ben sat down on the edge of the coffee table across from me. Not too close. Just enough that his knees brushed mine as he leaned forward. You sleep at all? He asked. Barely. Same. We both sipped our drinks in silence. The apartment was eerily quiet without the hum of appliances or the usual background noise. Just birds chirping outside and the occasional drip of rainwater from the balcony above. Did you think about it? He asked suddenly. I looked up. About what? Last night, I swallowed. Yeah, a lot. He nodded, eyes fixed on the floor like he was scared to look at me. I'm not freaking out, if that's what you're wondering. I mean, I am, a little, but not in the way I thought I would. Good freaking out or bad? Ben tilted his head, then met my gaze. Confused. Curious. Like I've been walking around with the blindfold for years, and I finally tugged on the edge and saw something I didn't know I wanted to. I wasn't sure what to say to that. It was honest. Raw. I leaned forward, setting the juice down. Ben, I'm not going to pressure you into anything. This isn't a test. I know, he said quietly, but I think I want to understand this. You, me, whatever that was. I nodded slowly. We can take it slow. No labels. No expectations. He exhaled. I'd like that. Then, softer. Can I ask you something? Sure. Back when you were with Leah, did you ever think about me? I blinked. That was not the question I expected. He laughed awkwardly. Sorry, that sounded weird. No, it's okay, I said, thinking back. I noticed you, yeah. But I kept it buried. You were her brother. Off limits. He nodded. I get it. Did you think about me? He didn't answer for a second. Then, More than I should have. The honesty in that hit me square in the chest. He looked embarrassed to say it out loud, but not ashamed. I leaned back, letting that settle between us. "So, what now?" I asked, then rubbed the back of his neck. "I have no clue. I've never done this before. Not just the kissing a guy thing, but like the not pretending part." I looked at him, really looked at him, and said, "We don't have to pretend anymore." He gave me a crooked smile. "Promise?" "Promise." It was quiet again after that, but not empty. There was a kind of peace to the morning light. The hum of city life starting to stir again outside. The two of us still in yesterday's clothes and last night's tension, but we were there. Together. The power hadn't come back, but something else had switched on. It took a full 2 days for the power to come back. Mark's building was one of the last in the neighborhood to get reconnected. Apparently, a transformer had blown a few blocks away, and repairs were crawling. So by default, we were stuck in this strange, semi-apocalyptic limbo where phones died, time slowed down, and everything outside the windows looked grayscale and damp. Ben didn't leave. Neither did I. We stayed. Ate cold leftovers by candlelight. Talked in the dark. Laid on the couch for hours just listening to the quiet. I don't know if we were afraid of what would happen when the lights came back on, or if we just liked how things felt when no one was watching. There's something about a blackout that strips away all the excuses. No distractions. No noise. No way to pretend you don't feel the thing pulsing between you and the person next to you. That second night, we shared the couch. He didn't ask. I didn't offer. It just happened. I shifted to one side, he laid down beside me, and we both just kind of settled into this warm, weirdly intimate arrangement like we'd been doing it for years. My arm draped around his shoulders, his back pressed to my chest. Neither of us made a move beyond that. But that closeness, the kind that makes you hyper-aware of someone's breathing, their scent, the subtle rise and fall of their body against yours, it was enough to keep me wide awake. At one point I whispered, "You okay?" He nodded against me. "Yeah, better than I thought I'd be." "Good." A beat passed. Then, "I'm scared of what this means." I didn't say anything right away, not because I didn't have an answer, but because I wanted him to know he was allowed to be scared. "I don't think it has to mean everything at once," I said eventually. "You think people will get it?" "Some won't, but the ones who matter will." He shifted slightly, his hand finding mine beneath the blanket. "Do you get it?" he asked. That question felt heavier than I expected. "I don't know if I get all of it yet," I admitted, "but I know I want to." That was enough for him. He didn't let go of my hand after that. Not even when we both drifted into sleep. Not even when I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating against the floor the next morning, miraculously alive after I plugged it into a portable charger overnight. The power was still out, but the daylight was strong, golden, even. Everything looked different in that kind of morning glow. Ben's face was relaxed in sleep, his brow smooth, his lips slightly parted. He looked peaceful, honest. I got up carefully and stepped into the kitchen to grab us both water. When I came back, he was sitting up, rubbing his eyes. "Morning," he said, his voice thick with sleep. "Morning." He stretched, winced. "Your couch is hell on my spine." I grinned. "Suffer for love." He smirked, but there was a faint blush creeping up his neck. "So we're calling it that now?" "I mean," I said, sitting down beside him, "you spent the night curled up in my arms. Feels fair to at least call it something." He didn't respond right away. Then he said, "It's still weird." "Not in a bad way, just new." "I know, but I don't hate it." "Same." A pause. Then, without looking at me, "Can I tell you something dumb?" "Always." He turned, finally meeting my eyes. "Last night was the first time I've slept through the night in months." That hit me somewhere deep. I nodded. "Same. We didn't kiss that morning. We didn't cuddle or say anything romantic. We just sat there, sipping warm water, listening to the silence of an unplugged apartment. But something had changed, and it was real. Later, when Mark came back with donuts and news that the power was probably returning that afternoon, the spell started to break, slowly. Ben stood up, stretched again, and said, I should probably go home. Shower, exist like a real person. I nodded. I figured. He paused near the door. You want to hang out later? I raised an eyebrow. You mean, like as friends? Or... He shook his head, smiling. No, not like that. And just before he stepped out, he leaned in and kissed me again. Soft. Intentional. A little less nervous this time. I'll text you, he said. And just like that, he was gone. The power came back that afternoon. It was almost anticlimactic. 1 second, the apartment was still and humming with nothing, and the next, the fridge kicked back to life with a groan. The lights blinked on, and the TV startled Mark by turning itself back on mid-commercial. He let out a dramatic cheer like we'd just survived the apocalypse. I just stared at the light fixture overhead, blinking like I hadn't seen electricity in years. It felt different, too bright, too exposed. And maybe that was fitting, because now there was light on everything. No more safe dark corners. No more excuses. Ben texted me just after the power came on. Ben, shower done. I'm slightly less of a raccoon now. Me, proud of you. The couch will miss your snoring. Ben, you liked my snoring. Me, that's a bold assumption. Ben, you didn't move away from it for 2 nights. I didn't have a response to that one because it was true. And because the subtext of it said more than either of us were ready to spell out. He showed up 2 hours later with a backpack and a 6-pack of the overpriced local beer we always joked about but never bought. This time, he had. When I opened the door, he didn't hesitate. No awkward shuffle, no glance around to check who might be watching. He just walked in, handed me a beer, and said, Can we talk somewhere not surrounded by sleeping bags and pizza crumbs? We ended up on the balcony. It wasn't much, just 2 folding chairs and a rusted railing. But it was private enough. The city buzzed below, and the storm had left everything smelling cleaner than usual. That kind of charged, post-rain scent that made you feel like something new was coming. He sat down and rested the beer against his knee, staring out. I told Leah, he said. That got my attention. Already, he nodded. This morning. Called her before I came over. My heart jumped. And? Ben took a slow breath. She laughed. At first I thought she was pissed, but it was more like disbelief. Like, wow, of all people. I tried to read his expression. She okay with it? She said she saw it coming. That stopped me. Wait, what? She said there were times, back when you two were together, that she caught me looking at you and wondered. She didn't think much of it, but she wasn't shocked. Just surprised it took this long. I didn't know what to say to that. I felt like I'd been hit with an emotional whiplash I hadn't prepared for. She's cool with it? I asked, finally. Ben nodded. She said, and I quote, As long as you don't break him, you're fine. I laughed. That's very her. He smiled. Yeah. Then his expression shifted, got quieter. She also said, I need to stop overthinking everything and just let it happen. That it's not supposed to make perfect sense. I sipped my beer, nodding slowly. She's right. He looked over at me. You gonna let it happen? I met his eyes. Are you? He didn't answer right away. Then he reached over and took my hand again, just like he had on the couch that night in the dark. But this time, it was daylight. This time, we weren't hiding. I'm trying, he said. I'm not perfect. I don't know what I'm doing. But I want to try, if you want to. I looked down at our hands, then back at him. I do. Something flickered in his eyes. Relief, maybe. Or hope. Maybe both. We didn't kiss out there. Not yet. We just sat in the late afternoon sun, holding hands like 2 teenagers who hadn't quite figured out the rules yet. It was slow, it was quiet, and it felt like the bravest thing either of us had done in a long time. After a while, he said, So are we, like, seeing each other now? I shrugged, smiling. Do you want to be? He grinned. Yeah. Then yeah, I guess we are. The rest of the day was simple. We watched something dumb on Netflix, ate leftover Thai food from the fridge. He stayed over again that night, but this time we shared the bed. Clothes on, hands touching, a comfort more than anything else. The kind of closeness that didn't need to be rushed or explained. Somewhere around 2 a.m. he whispered, "Thank you." For what? For not making me feel like I have to be someone else. I didn't respond with words. I just pulled him closer and held him there until both of us slipped into sleep with the quietest kind of certainty growing between us. A week later, I caught Ben in my kitchen, shirtless, stealing the last of my oat milk for his coffee. "Morning," he said like he lived here. Technically, he didn't. But he also kinda did. He hadn't stayed at his place since the night the blackout started. I leaned against the doorframe, watching him casually pour his coffee like he hadn't upended both of our lives with one kiss in the dark. His hair was a mess, his jeans barely hanging on his hips, and I swear he had no idea what he looked like first thing in the morning. It was mildly unfair. "I was saving that oat milk," I said. "No, you weren't," he replied without even looking. "I was emotionally attached to it. I'll emotionally replace it." Is that what we are now? Emotionally replacing things? Ben smirked and took a sip. Only the dairy alternative beverages. It had been like this, light, easy, strange in its normalcy. Like we'd skipped the awkward dating phase and slipped straight into this version of being together that was intimate and silly and filled with little unspoken understandings. He'd started leaving a toothbrush here, then a change of clothes, then half his skincare routine. We hadn't had a big talk since that night on the balcony. No declarations. No deep labels. But the way he reached for my hand when we were watching TV, or kissed my temple before bed, or the way he started calling me babe with absolutely no warning, those were all the conversations we needed. But still, part of me waited for the fallout. For the weirdness. For something to snap back and remind us this wasn't how it was supposed to go. That came, oddly enough, at brunch. It was one of those casual Sunday things. Me, Ben, and a couple of mutual friends at this spot, with overpriced pancakes and bottomless coffee. We hadn't planned to make any announcements, and we weren't even sitting that close. But something shifted halfway through. My friend Julia noticed first. "You two are weirdly synced today," she said. Ben and I glanced at each other, confused. "Like," she continued, pointing her fork at us, "you both picked up your mugs at the same time. 3 times. And you said the exact same thing twice. Are you sleeping together?" I choked on my drink. Ben just blinked. "What?" Julia leaned in. "I'm not judging, just observing. You're sitting like a couple. You're looking at each other like a couple. Are you? We're seeing each other," I said, maybe too fast. Ben's eyes snapped to me, a flicker of surprise that quickly softened into something warmer. He didn't correct me, didn't flinch. Julia raised her eyebrows. "Since when?" Ben smiled. "Since the power went out." Everyone laughed. It wasn't a big deal, just a moment. But it stuck with me, because that was the first time we said it out loud. The first time we let the world see it. After brunch, as we walked back toward my place, Ben slid his hand into mine casually. We passed people, walked across intersections, didn't let go. I kept waiting for him to tense up or pull away, but he didn't. "You okay?" I asked, squeezing his hand. He glanced sideways. "Yeah, I think I like not hiding." I stopped walking. He turned to face me. "What?" "You just said that so casually." "I meant it casually," he said. "I used to be scared shitless of anyone even guessing I might be into guys. But this? You and me? It doesn't feel like something I want to bury." I stepped closer. "Yeah? Yeah." Then, right there on the sidewalk, in broad daylight, he kissed me. Not a big, dramatic scene. Just a simple, soft kiss. Like it belonged there, like we belonged there. And that's when I realized it wasn't about the blackout. It wasn't about the timing or the silence or the candles. That night was just the moment everything got quiet enough for us to finally hear ourselves think. It was about all the things that came after. The mornings, the brunches, the borrowed oat milk, the unexpected softness of letting someone really see you and not looking away. 2 months after the blackout, Ben officially moved in. There wasn't a dramatic moment, no truck full of boxes, no teary goodbye to his old place. It was more like a slow migration, one drawer at a time. First, his toothbrush lived next to mine. Then it was his deodorant in my bathroom cabinet. Then suddenly he had more clothes in my closet than I did, and one morning he made me coffee before I even woke up and said, "Oh, by the way, I updated the Wi-Fi password." It was his apartment too now. Simple as that. We never sat down and declared ourselves boyfriends. That word sort of appeared in conversations with other people, and neither of us corrected it. That was our style, I guess. No grand speeches, no flash. Just a quiet, steady unfolding of something real. And somehow, the realness was what scared me the most. Not the kiss. Not the shift in identity. Not even the looks we sometimes got when we held hands in public. It was the softness of it all. Like waking up next to someone who knew which side of the bed you liked. Like the way Ben would absent-mindedly tuck his toes under mine on the couch. Like him saying, "Text me when you get there," and actually checking if I did. That was the part no one warned you about. How the small things sneak up on you. How falling for someone feels less like diving and more like realizing you've been standing in water for a while, and you're already soaked. One night, weeks after he moved in, we were cooking dinner. Well, I was. He was stirring a sauce and pretending he knew what he was doing. The kitchen was full of the smell of garlic and ginger and something spicy I'd added too much of. Music played low in the background. He turned to me suddenly, mid-stir, and said, "Do you ever think about how weird this is?" I blinked. "The sauce?" He laughed. "No, us." I stirred the pan, pretending to focus. "Define weird." "I used to think you were a little annoying," he said. "Kind of smug. That's fair. And now you're the first thing I think about when I wake up." That made me pause. I glanced over. "Yeah?" He nodded, quietly. "Yeah." There it was again, that weightless honesty he'd started carrying. Not afraid, not unsure, just open, like he'd finally learned to live without flinching. I set the spoon down. "Ben," I said, "you're the best thing to ever come out of a blackout." He smirked. "That's a low bar. We also got pizza and mild panic attacks. Still, you're top tier." He stepped closer. "You know what I think? Always dangerous." He ignored that. "I think the lights going out was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it made me stop running." I didn't say anything, just reached for his hand and squeezed. Later that night, we lay in bed, the apartment finally quiet. Power on, lights off. This time by choice. His head was on my chest, one leg thrown over mine, like he didn't need permission to claim the space anymore. "Do you ever wish we hadn't waited so long?" he asked. I thought about it. "I used to," I said. "But maybe we needed the dark to see this clearly." He didn't respond, just nuzzled closer, his breath slow and even. And in that stillness, with the city glowing faintly beyond the blinds and our limbs tangled in a way that didn't need explanation, I thought, this is what it means to choose someone. Every day. With the lights on, with the world watching. Without fear. Our first kiss was in the dark. But everything after that. Every soft morning, every stupid joke, every "I'm sorry and I love you" happened with the lights on, and I wouldn't change a second of it.